You good, Lauren? All right, morning, this is Brett Thompson, Chair of the Nrac. It is 10 o'clock on January 20th, 2026, and I'm calling the Nrac to order. This time, Ms. Lauren Borsch will call the roll.
Brett Thompson.
Present.
Brian O'Neill.
Present.
You. Andy Anshow.
Sure.
Present.
Jason. Roy Anderson.
Present.
Thank you. Salome Barton. Salome, can you confirm you're here? I see you. Taylor Allison. Present.
Salome Barton, present, trying to get my video to work.
Thank you, Salome. John Backnall.
Right here.
Thank you, John. Noah Boyer.
Present.
Thank you, Noah. Lee Cabinets.
Present.
Thank you. Doug McMahon. Anna Chavez. Present. Thank you, ma'am. Joe Colacursio.
Present.
Sarah. Colonel Kyle Serfolio. Tim Galuzzi.
Present.
Thank you. Kelly Echeverria. Andrea S. Present. Thank you. Jessica Brenner. Tim Hill.
Present.
Tim. Eric Holt.
I'm here. Good morning.
Good morning, Eric. Chris Lake. Carolyn Levering. Greg Prestipino.
Present.
Thank you, Greg. Daniel Pereira. Matthew Peterson. Ken Keener. Misty Robinson.
Present.
Thank you, Misty. Bill Sabrin.
Here.
Thank you. Carrie Underwood.
I'm here.
Thanks, sir. DT Allen. Adam Miller. Diana Clarkson. Corey Ross. Scott Means.
Present.
Thank you, Scott. Sarah Fickner. Heather Lafferty.
She's on a plan at the moment.
Melissa Friend. Here. Selby Marks.
Here.
Smith Laddick. Here. You have quorum.
Close agenda item number 1. We'll go to agenda item number 2, public comment. No action may be taken upon a matter raised under this item of the agenda unless the matter itself has been specifically included on the agenda as an item upon which action may be taken. Public comments will be limited to 3 minutes per person. Comments will not be restricted based on viewpoint. Provide testimony during this period of public comment via telephone. Please call in anytime after 9:30 on the day of the meeting by dialing 1-669-219-2599. When prompted to provide the meeting ID, please enter 202-331-8963 and then press pound. When prompted for a participant ID, please press pound again. When asked to provide public comment, please press *6 to unmute your phone and *6 again when your comments are complete. Please be advised the YouTube stream will be between 60 and 90 seconds behind the live meeting. At this point, I will take any public comment we have here in the room. Seeing none, any public comment on Zoom platform?
Yes, sir.
And any public comment on the phone?
Seeing none.
Okay. Sam, do I need to wait a little bit for the public, for the YouTube to catch up? Good.
I think we're all right.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, no public comment. We'll close agenda item number 2, go to agenda item number 3. This will be approval of the minutes. Discussion for possible action. Committee will discuss and review the minutes of October 7th, 2025 meeting. Committee will determine whether to approve the meeting minutes. Do we have any discussion on the meeting minutes or corrections? Okay, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
This is Andrea Asp. I make a motion to approve the minutes from October 7th, 2025.
Andrea with the first, John Dockett with the second. All those, any discussion? All those in favor, signal by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Passes unanimously. We're gonna close agenda item number 3. I'm gonna go out of order for the next 3. I'm gonna skip to agenda item number 5, then 6, and then we'll return to number 4. So we're gonna open agenda item number 5. This will be the grant status report discussion only. Shay Sloan, our grants supervisor, is going to review the EMPT, HSGP, NSGP, and SLCGP grant status report.
Alrighty, good morning, Shay Sloan for the record. Attached as part of the meeting materials was the grant status report. That report provides the grant program, the grant year, the award amount, and the balance for all the state, OEM, and urban area grants. It's based on the completed transactions from the state accounting system, and it is pulled quarterly. Right off the top, I do have some notes about this quarter's report. You look at HSGP FY21 and EMPG FY22, those period of performances have ended, and we are working on closing those 2 grants out. For FY22 HSGP and FY22 EMPG, you will see 2 negative balances for OEM. That's due to fiscal processes and a cash management issue due to the FY25 funding not being released. I can get additional information and details on that from our fiscal section if it's needed. For EMPG FY23, we have received a time extension, and the period performance now ends March 30th of 2026. And for NSGP FY22, we also received a time extension, and the period of performance now ends on February 28th of 2026. And then if there are any questions, I'm happy to take those.
Do you have any questions for Shay? Okay, hearing none, we will close agenda item number 5. We will move to agenda item number 6. This is the 2025 grants update discussion only. Suze Coyote, our grants chief, is going to review what we think we know about grants. And God love you for doing it.
Hi, Suze Coyote for the record. An overview. Nevada joined a multi-state lawsuit after DHS and FEMA imposed unauthorized FY25 grant conditions. Federal courts blocked those conditions and restored lawful requirements in multi-year performance periods. FEMA is reissuing corrected FY25 awards. Separate DHS policies continue to affect timelines. What courts blocked? Population certification conditions that include immigration enforcement certifications. A 1-year period of performance was restored to a multi-year period of performance for EMPG and HSGP. They have certain DEI restrictions and improper freezes on grant awards. The result is that FEMA must adhere to the congressional framework. Additional DHS policy impacts the DHS secretary level review of contracts and subawards over $100,000. This has not been overturned, but it is under congressional scrutiny. This could and may be delaying award issuance, the removal of holds on awards, and reimbursement of OEM on subrecipient payments. The FY25 federal reissuance timeline. The Nevada Attorney General confirmed FEMA intends to reissue compliant FY25 awards by January 24th, 2026 for HSGP, EMPG, NSGP, and SLCGP. Reissued awards will include the restored multi-year periods of performance that have been standard, removal of blocked terms and condition, and updated FEMA standard terms. Nevada implementation, once awards arrive, OEMs, Deputy Attorney General will review the award packages and federal terms and draft subaward agreements as soon as that legal review is complete. And then OEM grant staff will issue them to eligible subrecipients and will notify subrecipients approved for funding and then applicants and projects that remain on hold. Outstanding unknowns. FEMA has not provided timelines for completing FY25 HSGP application review or removal of holds. Those applications were submitted in August and nothing has happened with them. FY25 NSGP application review has not started either. FEMA has not provided details or updates on any of this other than to say they have no additional information. OEM will communicate once FEMA resumes communication with us regarding the status of these grants. The BRIC status, the administration attempted to terminate the BRIC program. States sued and won. Courts ordered that BRIC be restored. FEMA must resume mitigation funding. Timelines have not been announced by FEMA. OEM meets with FEMA mitigation grant staff monthly, and no details have been provided on the status of the current BRIC grants or future BRIC grants. They are also waiting for information from their leadership. So core takeaway, court rulings preserve Nevada's FY25 preparedness and mitigation funding and restored lawful grant terms, which is great, but everything is still on hold. So when we have more information, we will let you know. Reissued awards are expected January 24th to DEM primary awards, after which we'll process subawards while continuing to monitor DHS contracting review delays and FEMA's outstanding grant application reviews. I'll take any questions.
The break on, so go ahead. So the short story is periods of performance are back to 3 years, which is great.
Yes.
But because of the delay in the grants last year not being processed till August, and then the federal government shut down for 6 weeks, the HSGP IJs, God knows when those will be processed.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Floor is open for questions. John?
So John Backadall, does the crystal ball say we are going to 1 October as our performance start, or do you not have a clue?
1 October is the period of performance start, most likely. I mean, they're going back to standard terms and conditions. That is the beginning of the period of performance according to the notice of funding opportunity. So that is true for HSGP, NSGP, SLCGP, the EMPG being the exception, which starts the previous fiscal year.
Can I ask part 2, please?
Yes,
So
sir.
John Backadall again. So in regards to that, I haven't yet, but I would like to start working on building the RFP and whatnot for the award that DEM approved. So if we could, are we allowed to start working on it since it was, the performance period is 1 October. The grant was approved locally, or are we not allowed to start doing some fiscal responsibility prior to having fiscal award?
I would not recommend doing work on a grant award that hasn't been properly executed. We don't have a properly executed grant award with FEMA. The terms and conditions are not known. So if you were to proceed with procurement or anything that has not already been clearly documented in a grant award between the state and you, it's ill-advised. We still don't have proper communication or clarity on any of this.
Not procurement, I'm sorry, John,
Okay.
again, not procurement, but the paperwork leading up to procurement. So now we're working on the project, but there's no cost to it.
Mhm.
So would that affect the award, knowing that the performance started 1 October? Because it's not supplanting, because we're not spending anything. We're doing the legwork leading up to the grant, because it's going to take months to purchase something like
Right.
the anti-vehicle barriers. That takes a month-long process just to develop an RFP, then to issue it, then release it. That's where I'm trying to go
Fully.
on the paperwork side.
Yeah, look at that. If you're not charging your time to the grant.
Right.
That should be fine. Then you're not actually taking any action.
Correct. No cost, no expenditures.
Right. But any funding that you might be charging to that grant, unless you have a signed grant award signed by you and us, that funding's at risk.
Thank you.
Brantley Hancock.
Yeah, I think you kind of answered my question is around the cybersecurity grant. So it sounds like it's all in the same legal limbo process. Because I think we were awarded 24 and 25, and we haven't been able to get any communication. I know we've been emailing DHS grants at dem.nv.gov and haven't gotten any response. So I don't know, is that still the right process to follow up, like where it's at, or is there a better email for any sort of status updates, or will it go out for the listserv when you guys have an update? I guess, how do we know?
So for FY 25, those grant awards have not been issued yet.
And 24, yeah.
So your application may have been reviewed and approved by the committee for submission, but as far as receiving like a free and clear grant award, that hasn't happened yet for FY 25. For FY 24, we are still being told that the cost share waiver may be approved. We qualified for the cost share waiver, that 30% cost share on FY 24. And it's been on the person's desk for more than a year now.
Okay.
Last time I spoke with them, they said that person left during the shutdown and a new person was installed. The last time I talked to the head of that program, she said that we're not saying, nobody can definitively say anything, but she said that there was the potential that it would be signed, and it sounded on the verge of hopeful.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. And then, because I know, yeah, because 24, that's what it sounded like, was that you don't want agencies to spend the money and suddenly just kidding, you also need to find 30% if they don't approve the cost share.
We'd hate to issue the grant award just to have to rescind them and reissue them. We'll
And then-
continue to follow up. We have for this entire period, but
Okay.
have been really like anything that has to do with leadership or any of these contracts, and a grant is a contract, anything over $100,000 is getting reviewed and sitting on someone's desk for review. And this is another thing that's kind of.
And I'm
stuck.
assuming, is that also, because we also got awarded in 2023, so we did spend the money already for 23, and now I think we're
Right.
getting stuck with some sort of issue with like the contracts needed to have certain language in it. So I don't know if that's, again, the current administration suddenly trying to retroactively change the grants. And so we've been trying to get clarification on that too, because like the goalposts moved after we already spent the money. So that's why we've been trying to reach out to DHS grant email group. We haven't gotten any response. I don't know if there's a better route.
We'll
reach
check
out to
into
them.
responses on DHS grants and why you haven't heard back. You should have. We'll correct that. That's the
Okay.
case. And contract language, the requirements for contract language are in FEMA's contract language document that's in there with your grant award and Zoom grants. And remains consistent.
Okay. Yeah, that's why we're trying to get answers on why things have moved. So we weren't sure if this is another like legal maneuver by the administration, maybe to also affect 23 years, or maybe it's just something else. So, okay, we'll reach out again.
Any additional questions or discussion? Okay, seeing none, thank you, Suze. We'll close agenda item number 6. We're going to go back to agenda item number 4. This is the Homeland Security Grant Program definitions, discussion for possible action. The committee will discuss and may vote to recommend definitions related to the Homeland Security Grant Program project classification, specifically maintain, enhance, and new. Before I open the floor, just a couple of notes here. So as you just heard from Suze, we're still working our way through limbo in the 25 stuff. We don't know when 26 will come out. Obviously, in an ideal world, it would happen in March. Typically happens in May, and obviously happened in August of last year. So the intent on this discussion item is for the committee, if possible, to come to a consensus on defining these terms or deciding if we need to keep the terms or go to 2 terms. And it will be a recommendation to the SAA, myself, and then obviously we will put that into the NOFO once we publish that, once we see what we get from the feds. I would caution though, because we have seen so much turmoil in the grants and because there's so much discussion in DC on what future grants will look like, that there's a distinct possibility that we could see NOFOs that come out this year that are only 1 year instead of 3 years. That's an easy way to fix what they attempted to do last year and were unsuccessful to do due to the court action. Just keep that in mind. We also could see an adjustment in the national priority areas or the direction of spending that directs us to spend it more in a homeland security manner than some of the fringe areas that we do spend money and are authorized to do that, but we could see some stuff. So what I'm telling you is I have no idea what the hell is going to happen in the future. But the reality is we should position ourselves best possible to be able to react in whatever time they give us to do it in the 26th period. So before I open it up, I did take some time this morning and I went through all the notes from the last meeting. And it was very clear when we left the last meeting that we did not have, we had lots of concerns and positions and perspectives, all of which are right, and none of which are right. And so everything from, are we talking about maintaining certain dollar amounts? Are we talking about enhancements tied to a percentage or a dollar amount? Are we talking about maintaining a capability? And how do you define what that capability is and what the cost is associated with that? We had discussions about 1 year, 2 year, and 3 year, allowing the definitions for exist for that period of time. We had discussions about competing every year. We had discussions about the details of the application. And I've had a host of input from a number of members over the last 2 weeks on the subject. So what I'm going to do is open it up for discussion. In the end, I am hopeful that we will get to a consensus recommendation. If not, you will be stuck with my decision as SAA when we release the NOVO. So with that, floor is open for discussion on thoughts related to maintain, enhance, and new.
Hey, Brian O'Neill for the record.
Let me give Brian, I'll come back to you, John. Chief O'Neill?
Yeah, in the last one, I had made a recommendation to have a 3-year cycle to maintain projects. I actually, after spending some time with it, I think that period should be shorter and go down to a maximum of 2 years. I think that would allow for agencies to build into their own agency budget the costs of accepting grant awards and be prepared to assume the cost of it over a period of time, and continue to allow more and a higher percentage of the funds that we receive to be used for implementation of new projects. So I'll just start there.
Okay, thank you. John Bagadol?
So John, for the record, with the definitions being interpreted by different people differently, I would be in favor of making everything competitive. And there is no enhanced, there is no new, there is no maintained. You come with your best project and you come with the definitions behind it on what you've purchased. If you've purchased the same thing previously, you have to disclose that when it was purchased. And that would help us define life cycles on things. And if people are at least attempting, if not moving forward with budgeting in their general fund or other allocations for the same product year after year after year, or at least simplifying it to where everything is a competitive grant.
All right, thank you, sir. Appreciate the input. Additional comments?
Carrie Underwood for the record.
Carrie?
Definitely understand where everybody's coming from. And I think what I'd like to inject into your thought process and certainly for discussion is the importance of understanding what the original intent as well as continuing evaluation of these grants was and is, with the emphasis of these grants being developed originally to essentially build state and local areas' capability to prevent and protect against acts of terrorism. I think that our state and certainly our urban areas have invested a lot over the years in trying to do that. And I think there's a reasonable discussion to making sure that we sustain those capabilities, because those capabilities are part and parcel to what the current administration, the previous administration, and every previous administration has emphasized need to occur, as well as have looked at the proper use of these grants over numerous different examples over the year, going back to Senate reports, congressional reports, White House evaluations. I personally have heads of agencies coming in here and evaluating grant expenditures very regularly. I don't know if the same is true for everyone, but I think there has to be a conversation about making sure that we stay true to the purpose of the grant. And yes, we all get to reap the benefits of it in other projects that are kind of on the fringes of what these grants are for. But I think that we have to make sure that there's a sustained investment in those capabilities that they were intended to build and ultimately maintain. And of course, everyone has to be a good steward of those. And what I mean specifically when we start talking about minimum expenditures, right, in national priority areas, things like 3% cyber, 35% LETPA, 10% new border one this last year. Those are minimum spends, right? It's not a number to be reached so we can go spend things on other things. I think we need to, whatever we build has to talk about sustaining those capabilities we've built that are the true purpose of those grants. And I know as a fusion center, we're a big ask every single year. I know my partner up there in Carson City, same thing, but which certainly has room for growth with that center. And so I just want to make sure that conversation is part of the conversation as well. We have to make sure that we continue. That's what every year when we get these amounts of money, it is so that we can sustain the things that we've invested in. So I think there has to be some definition there.
Thanks, Gary. Any additional comments, thoughts? Gary, a quick question. So balancing your comments against the ones right before you with John, where he proposed basically eliminating the terminology and just competing everything every year.
Right.
How do you see, like, how can we make those two together? Is there a way to do that you can see?
I do actually. I want to make sure I'm okay. I do. Carry on for the record again. I do. I think that there's probably a responsibility, certainly for the state, with the urban area leaders' input. But I think that we should probably identify some key areas that are state priority investments. And there should absolutely be, to Chief O'Neill's point, no program or project should be without an evaluation period, right? Even those that are justifying a sustain. There should be an open assessment about whether or not the sustainment of these priority Homeland Security projects is merits the priority, right? Merits part of what that particular program is doing. And then I think, beyond that, I think that the outcome of that assessment should fundamentally decide whether or not future projects or future expenditures should either be modified or moving them into a compete status, kind of like what John was talking about, where every project is a compete. I think that there's some compromise in there is what I'm trying to say. I do think there should be an evaluation period for projects that are determined to be sustain eligible, if you will, right? That basically you have to make the argument that you stay in this sustainment category. And I think that there should be reasonable limits to increases to sustainment costs. And if you have to exceed those sustainment costs, then you have to actually come in and justify it. I know previously it was a 10% number for things like cost of living and other adjustments. I think that you can establish that number, and anything that is in excess of that, that project lead has to come in and justify. So I think that there's room for compromise, and I absolutely think any project should have to justify their sustainment thing. And I think there should be limits to which projects actually qualify for being in a statewide priority sustainment category.
Okay, thanks. Taylor.
Thank you, Taylor Allison, for the record. I just wanted to jump in here. I do agree with having projects go competitive annually if possible. I've expressed previously the challenges in new projects coming forward, and particularly making it equitable for rural counties that haven't had the capacity to participate previously. With that being said, I do hear that it is important that we sustain critical programs. And I guess the question I have back to Chief Compton is there a way under the purview of Nrac we could also make recommendations to the state and political subdivisions for what we consider sustainable projects that should come off of these funding streams in the future and should be included in our state and local budgets? This is not, in my eyes, has not been sustainable. It's been very high risk, fluctuating funding for our critical programs. And if there's a way we can kind of lean forward in doing that as a body, I'd support that as well.
Thanks, Taylor. Great question, great discussion, actually. So I appreciate that. I don't have a good answer for you. I mean, the answer is yeah. Based on whatever the federal government requires of these grants and what the state sees as investment justifications or investment areas, that does seem reasonable. Okay, Noah.
Noah Boyer for the record. Just to kind of Underwood's, points with this from a squad perspective. We wouldn't have bomb squads in the state of Nevada if it wasn't for the funding source from SHSP and UASI. And just to reiterate, as a project manager, I have no problem coming back year after year and justifying our projects. And if it doesn't meet the mark, then it doesn't meet the mark. And being able to be held accountable for the funding that we do receive, develop a mechanism for that. As we continue to see, our landscape change with the new counter UAS mission, which, Nevada is on the forefront of that. And we're pushing that technology, but that technology isn't cheap. And it's a partnership that we're going to see between our bomb squads and our intelligence centers and all of those. And so it's going to be interesting moving forward to see how those projects develop. And truly our funding source for that is going to be through SHSP and UASI.
All right, thanks, Noah. Appreciate that. Tim Gluzzi.
Good morning, Tim Galuzzi for the record. I think we can accomplish both things. I think we can categorize the investments as either new or ongoing sustainment type categories, but still compete. When I'm looking towards building a statewide security operations center, that is a multi-year long endeavor that is going to be a phased process, and that funding is absolutely critical for us to be able to provide those services out to the rural communities. If that funding is not available, then the only way I'm going to be able to do that is if I charge a rate for it. And I know that those rural communities just can't afford that. And so, I think when we look at the criticality of that program and really the intent of that whole of state program and approach of the state and local cybersecurity grant program, being able to rely on that for a multi-year investment is really the intent of that program. And to only get it for a year or two and then to have it potentially go away would absolutely be counterintuitive.
Thanks, Tim. I appreciate that. Any additional comments or discussion? John Beckett.
So that's John again, and I appreciate what Carrie said and fully understand that's our top priority is to make sure we have fusion centers and information sharing. Definitely wasn't a knock towards that, but it's a knock towards the process of when we started last year, there was $24,000 left after all of the red line stuff from pre-approved grant cycles. That doesn't help anybody who's trying to add a one-time capacity, which goes back to the original intent of the grant was to get that one-time thing and then the local jurisdiction maintains it after that. That's not a local jurisdiction. What SNCTC does as well as here at NTAC is statewide support for everybody. And same with a bunch of other things that are funded throughout that grant when it comes to Continuity Nevada and perimeter type platforms. I get it. But to your point, Brett, going towards how are we going to look at if this grant goes away and people start to look at their capabilities outside of this grant. And if you're not looking at that, you're not preparing yourself or your jurisdiction or a statewide support to help look at long-term activities from what your jurisdiction does. Because it's more than likely these grants are going to go away or at least come with some sort of large cost share moving forward. It's the only 100% funded grant on paperwork out the front. Everything else has cost shares that we utilize. So I think whatever you decide would be the best for the state, but we all need to start looking at moving forward and moving off of these grants because they're not going to be here forever. It wasn't supposed to be here by this date. We're at 25 years this year of post 9/11.
Thanks, John. Points. Additional comments? Greg?
Hey, Brian O'Neill for the record, just one more. We're trying to maintain capabilities that have been around for a long time, in some cases for 10 or 15 years. And we're not providing an evolution to the threat that we're currently seeing and the evolution of terrorism and things that might affect our community. And I think that ties back to the FIRA of identifying the threats that are most particular for areas, and then identifying the capabilities that we need to address those at the time. That's done on a much more frequent cycle than just continuing to maintain projects and programs. And so I think if there's a tie-in to some of those other planning processes that help us to identify year over year our threats and hazards, I think that might be a big step in kind of clearing up the timeline that's necessary for projects.
Thanks, Brian. I appreciate that. Greg Prestipino.
Hey, Greg Prestipino for the record, everyone. Just to comment on John Beckadall's last comment, we have been working with the NTAC, Nevada Threat Analysis Center, to alleviate some of our asks for the last 2 years by decreasing our asks through the SHSP for about 10% for each last 2 years. We've also been working with our counterparts down at SNCTC with how we can work together. And we've been actually, I think throughout the last few years now, our relationships have been very strong. And we've actually been working towards moving some of our actual software and products off of the actual grant and into our state general fund. But like we know, that's always a difficult ask to do. But these are the things that we're doing so that everyone else within the Nrac can have that ability to compete for whatever is left over to the grant. But we also have to make sure that we maintain and stay within the actual objectives within the grant by maintaining the priorities, which is detect, deter, and prevent.
Thank you, Greg. Appreciate it. Director Underwood.
Yeah, and just for the sake of trying to get some consensus for you, Free Chief, maybe if there is a consideration for those that sort of receive recurring grant funds or sustainment, if you will, if that's the word we want to look at, maybe part of the discussion needs to be that those programs have to actually submit some type of long-term sustainment plan. To John Beckadall's point, I think, I do think that that's what everybody should be forecasting. I know we have that conversation a lot down here, even as a heavy recipient, and it's why we have actually eliminated a lot of things off of previous year. But maybe that's part of the discussion. Maybe if you're in that sustainment or you have recurring funds being granted to you, like Noah's project up there, maybe that's something we have to submit about what we are trying to do actively each year to remove certain parts of our sustainment long term. I don't think that that's an unreasonable ask. It's more work, obviously, and Anna's going to kill me later, but I do think that maybe that's not an unreasonable ask either.
All right, thank you. Additional comments? All right, hearing no additional comments, I am going to open and make a motion. I'm going to make a motion that the Nrac make a recommendation to myself as the SAA that for the upcoming grant cycle, we go to annual competitions that include priorities that will be included in the NOFO state priorities in addition to federal priorities for sustainment. And any of those sustains will be required to include a long-term sustainment plan as Director Underwood just described. Is there a second?
Ptolemy Barton, second.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Do we have discussion, John?
So John, back it up for the record, the state priorities, how would those be identified? Does it come from Nrac? Does it come Nrac recommendation to Homeland Security, or does it come from SAA?
So my proposal as an addendum to the motion would be it will come from SAA with concurrence of the governor. That way, as the senior Homeland Security person for our whole state, he has a say on what's the most important for the overall enterprise.
So John, back it all, I think that's appropriate. That's what Sandoval did years ago when he wanted to start implementing very specific statewide priorities. And there was not a lot of argument, obviously, against the man, but also against towards the priorities.
Thank you, John. I appreciate that. Eric Holt?
Yeah, Chief. So would there be a timeline on those sustained projects, or is it just once they're supported, they're supported?
As I see it, that each NOFO, we would delineate the Nevada determines that we want to maintain, and I'll just use this for example, fusion centers. Fusion centers must be included in some way, shape, or form, whatever that's defined as, bomb, just because we had a couple of those examples pop up. So whatever the 4, 5, 6, 10 priorities of the state with concurrence of the governor, they would be listed in the NOFO, much like the federal government lists 35% for law enforcement, or 10% for border, 3% for cyber. So we would have a state addendum to that.
Thank you for that clarification.
Director Underwood?
Carrying on for the record and just echoing John Backendall's comments, I appreciate that he brought up that going all the way back to Governor Sandoval, but even subsequent administrations and SAAs have provided those types of priority areas in the past. So I do believe that what you're suggesting is consistent with precedent. That's it.
Thank you. Chief O'Neill?
Yeah, Brent O'Neill for the record. State Homeland Security Commission, we do present our awarded projects to that commission for their approval. What would be their role?
Brett Council for the record. So they still have the legal obligation. Ultimately, they're the approval authority. So this board makes a recommendation on the ranking of those projects. It then goes to Homeland Security Finance, who has the authority to make adjustments to that. And after that, it goes to Homeland Security for final approval. Whatever Homeland Security approves is what goes forward to FEMA. Can I answer your question, Chief?
Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
All right. Director Underwood?
I already spoke. I didn't lower my hand. I apologize.
Okay. Taylor?
Just a quick follow-up. I agree and support this, just requesting if we can potentially have a future agenda item on the Nrac where we can support a formal recommendation of sustainability for those programs that make them to the state of Nevada and appropriate political subdivisions.
All right, thanks, Taylor. Just be advised, if we go that route, we're gonna have to do another Nrac before the NOPOs come out. Of course, we have no idea when those come out. so-
Yeah, in August last year.
Okay. Any additional comments on the motion? Okay, at this point, I'm gonna call for a voice vote. If there is significant dissension, then we will go and do it by name, Lauren, on any nays, so that we have accurate numbers.
With what was said, this is John Backendall, with what was said afterwards, could you repeat the motion so we know what we're voting on?
So the motion before us is to compete all projects annually with the NOFO including a list of state priorities that must be funded that are governor approved. And any of those projects listed as sustained in future years will have to provide a long-term sustainment plan for consideration in the next competition. So at this point, again, I'm going to call for a voice vote. If we have significant nays, then we will go to a by name vote, so we have the accurate numbers. So all those in favor of the motion as just presented, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. Motion passes unanimously. Wow. Thank you, guys. Appreciate that. Okay, with that, we will close agenda item number 4. We will go to agenda item number 7. This will be the second period of public comment. To provide testimony during this period of public comment via phone, please call in the phone number previously presented. When prompted, provide the meeting ID, which is 202-331-8963, and press pound. When prompted for participant ID, please press pound. When asked to provide public comment, please press *6 to unmute your phone, and *6 again when your comments are complete. At this point, do we have any public comment in the room? Any public comment on Zoom? And any public comment on the phone?
We're seeing them.
Okay, at this point, we see no public comment. We will close agenda item number 7. And at this point, adjournment, I will take a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Motion.
John Backendall first.
Cabinets, I'll second.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay.